What does it feel like being black in Britain?
The government has come with its academies, free stuff. Our children are being thrown out of school, exclusion from schools, and they are now, there's a school prison pipeline because they're expelled from school, they're on the streets, they're picked up by the police, get into the criminal justice system, and that's where they stay. So the situation now is absolutely grave for our young people. And of course now we're talking about Brexit.
If I lived somewhere else in Britain, it would be much harder to be ethnic minority and I think being fully accepted into whichever area you live in. So it's difficult. It's got its plus sides because we're progressing, but then again, it's still stuck in its old ways. So the plus is obviously we bring a lot of vibrance, something new to the country. I guess the negative, being an ethnic minority living here, is it's still a white country, it's still British, and I think about 90% of it. And I guess most people tend to think of their own before they give opportunities to others. Obviously, with the media at the moment being very anti-immigrant and all that rhetoric from politicians, and with Brexit, it's a very difficult time, I think. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's rough. Nothing ain't really happening for none of us. It's just the same old. It's just to me, it's just like a smoke screen. Boy, like Brixton now, that's pushing out the black people out of Brixton. It was pure yuppie and that coming in and pricing us out. Everything's getting expensive. So to me, nothing has changed for me. If you understand what I'm saying, nothing has really changed. Even though you talk about this Brexit and this and that, it ain't gonna benefit. It ain't benefiting us black people. No matter what they do, it's not to benefit us. It's not to benefit us. It's to benefit them and their pockets and stuff there.
With more awareness about different ethnic background and with the culture of people coming from all over the world, I would say it's definitely better. Obviously, there are still gaps and rooms for improvement, but yeah, as a kind of someone from ethnic background, it's okay. I think it's getting better in certain areas.
So we are now arrived at Brexit, where the government doesn't really know what it wants to do about Brexit, but that's an opportunity for black people because guess what? The government has to pivot away from the EU towards the Commonwealth. And guess what? The Commonwealth is black and brown people, 2.2 billion of them. And that gives black people an opportunity now to engage in the discussion about Brexit. Because then if you're Nigeria or Ghana or the Caribbean, you can say, okay, stop. We need to think about businesses now. How can we now get into business in a big way, and be ahead of it? So we got to be part of the discussion, I think, about Brexit. And that's where we are right now. It's about economic empowerment for the black community.
Hello and welcome to Talk Africa with me, Jones. Talk Africa is a program that brings you closer to home by discussing all issues pertaining to Africa. And I must say, Happy New Year as we start with our new series here on GNTV and also on GN Radio. Today, my guest in the studio, joining us today, we have Julius Bulutu, who is a broadcaster and a political analyst and also editor for Informer East Africa. He'll be my guest this morning. Now, later on in the show, we will, as we always do, bring you our topic of the day. And the question is simple. What we're asking is, what is it like to be an ethnic minority in the 21st century in Britain? I'm sure a lot of people will be assessing their lives right about now to see if being in Britain as an ethnic minority is good or is it bad? Or are we moving in the right direction? We'll be more than happy to get your thoughts on that. In this second segment, my guest in the studio will look at stories trending across the continent, as we always do. And also, you can share your thoughts on that as well. We're also streaming live on Facebook. You can go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK, also on Talk Africa Facebook page. You can share your comments on there. If you'd like to call into the studio, it's 0203 735 8820 or 0203 286 0185. So when we do open the phone lines, make sure you call in to share your thoughts as well. But we start here with the stories making the headlines here in the UK. Good morning, Julius. How are you?
All right, thank you.
I think I have to say Happy New Year again. Because this is the first time we've met since last year.
Yeah, it's so long time ago. Last year, man.
Yes.
Should have done better than that. But the year is still young, so
yes.
Yeah.
Finally, January is over. We're into a new month.
I never made any resolutions.
No.
Because by now I should have broken all of them.
All right. Let's look at the stories making the headlines here in the UK. And you picked one story, which is Brexit. Yet again, Brexit. We don't know whether we're going or coming. It seems as if the Conservative cabinet is split.
You know, I listened once to someone being interviewed about the effect they get after having this thing they call shisha. And he was saying that the way I feel is like I'm there and I'm not there. Yeah. That's the way you feel with Brexit.
Yeah.
We don't know whether we're in Europe or whether we are not, because the debate never goes away. Every day something else is coming up. And I think today the most important thing they're talking about Brexit is the practical method to get out. And of course, they are thinking that if they left the custom union,
yes,
it would be easier for them to strike deals with different other countries. But before they come out of that, they are still bound. And the negotiations, as we saw late last year, talking about some close to almost about 60 billion to pay off, to come out. So it used to be, from a layman's point of view, the use and means, like, it looks so easy. It was like, we don't want to be in Europe. We can just leave tomorrow. Now people voted. They're like, this thing was more complex than
yes, it is, because you got the Home Secretary Amber Rudd saying that the UK will have some custom relationship, whereas the Housing Minister is also saying that there will be such thing will not happen.
Yeah, the debate never ends.
But then within the government, the government
is divided.
They're divided, right?
Very much divided. It's the funny thing. Even Conservatives are divided.
Yeah.
But also the
Labour as well,
and Labour at the same time, because there are those who are for it, others are not for it. There are people from the Labour Party who think, okay, we got into it, we can live with it, just make the best out of it, and we support the Conservative government. Yeah. Yet the Conservative government is totally divided on it. And even the most interesting thing, did you know that the Prime Minister, Theresa May, voted to stay?
Yes, she's a Remainer.
Now she's a Remainer, but she has to navigate a ship for leaving. How does it work?
It's funny, it's interesting you touch on that, because most people, it was reported in the media a lot, saying that Boris Johnson should be the one to take the mandate and just push for hard Brexit, because he is a renowned Brexiteer.
Yeah, Michael Gove.
And
Boris Johnson, they are the people who of course, with the UKIP, Nigel Farage, they were the people on the driving seat for the country to leave. And one would have thought, if they succeed, we'll see either the three of them, at least one of them, will be the one who takes over from former Prime Minister David Cameron. But then, the funny thing with it is, like, they succeed, and Boris never wanted to be a PM. Michael Gove was nowhere to be seen. Nigel Farage was saying that, no, I've always been a businessman. I don't like politics. And I'm like, you've been in politics. What's your problem? And then we end up with Theresa May, who voted to stay, now being the one to take the country out. It's a kind of a very tricky scenario. And
with the likes of Michael Gove and Boris Johnson, we saw what happened after the referendum. Michael Gove, all of a sudden, somebody who was not interested in becoming the leader of the Conservatives, all of a sudden, after the referendum, put himself forward. And then, as it turned out, he ended stabbing Boris Johnson in the back.
Yeah, the thing which was very interesting was to see that just after the referendum ended, these three never were very keen. And then on the other hand, we thought, of course, David Cameron, having taken the bold move to even allow the referendum, at least you stay on and navigate the ship. Then he says, no, this thing, listen, I know how to navigate when it is stay. Now it's leave. I don't know how to, so it's my time to resign. But now you see Theresa May also, she was, I think no one expected her to come to be the Prime Minister. But if you remember very well, only two candidates from Conservatives.
Yes.
Theresa May and the other lady, I can't mention her name. She made a blunder within a weekend. She was eaten to the dust.
Yeah.
You just controversy-ridden weekend, and she was normal. So it was like as a consequence of lack of leadership. We thought Labour would be the alternative voice of reason, but can you remember one day Shadow Cabinet Secretary resigning almost all of them in a day? So no one was there. I was like, Britain, we need to import some Prime Minister or something.
So does that mean that Britain should stick with Theresa May?
I think, from my perspective, and it's in the interest of Britain, this world, there's no country that can live like a pariah nation. A pariah nation is a country that lies to itself, that I can do it on my own, I am content, I have everything I need, I can survive. Pariah nations, not in this century. We are interconnected across the world, whether we like it or not. So that being the case, Britain is better staying within EU, because why leave such a big market to come and stay alone and begin to strike some small deals with some countries?
Julius, you're going against the will of the people. All right, let's move on to our next story. This is to do with Facebook. It's been reported that Facebook still promoting extremist views. This was against the promises that were made by Facebook.
Yeah, I've seen Mark Zuckerberg's
Yes.
second name. Very interesting to see how things are turning around. Of course, he's still defending Facebook, but at the same time, you see the problem. The problem with this social media, I always put it in a very simple terms. If you want the devil, he's on the internet. If you want God, he's on the internet. And that's a reality we have to always live with, because social media is always used by the baddies, as we call them, and the goodies, good people, bad people. They further their campaign through social media, and it's very difficult to regulate this. But of course there are extremes. I've seen, if I want just to go back, I saw at the height of, I remember there's like a campaign by extremists one time when there was too much content from ISIS creeping in social media so much. There's this, we call them archivists, and they kind of counter their campaign by hacking systems, and they came across again to hack the websites of ISIS and all that, bringing them down. So you ask yourself, this world, if it was to be a war on social media, there are people who can bring those sites down. There are people who can also bring extremist content from Facebook down, if they so wish. And also, I think it's within the remit of Facebook to bring them down if they so wish. So is Twitter, because at the end of the day, if we want to say we can regulate and make it the platform through which people can interact, and a lot of positive comes out of it, then so be it. That's the idea behind it all. But you see, the problem is the people who want to further their negative, evil campaign, extremism, and even terrorism and all that. They are also determined to use the same thing. So how can you win? I think it's a difficult situation to be in, platform like Facebook, and no matter how sometimes they try, remember this: there's always a funny guy somewhere a step ahead. It's like Bitcoin, then the blockchains. If they block you and they operate within your realm, how do you kick them out? That's a challenge.
Well, to be fair to Facebook, they have tried to, I think, to minimize the amount of fake news that have been published on Facebook. And since they started doing that, there's been a decline in the amount of usage of the amount of people using Facebook. I mean, as you said there, it would be very, very difficult for them to do so. But let's quickly move on as we're running out of time. And the next story is hundreds wrongly cleared after smear test blunder.
Yeah, one of the things I hate is when hospitals make mistakes, because it's a matter of life and death. And I remember very well one of the most emotional story I ever did was about misdiagnosis from an hospital, whereby someone who had a sound mind was declared mentally ill, and she ended up being divorced on the grounds of being mentally ill. So the consequences of being, hospitals cannot make mistakes. They are not supposed to make mistakes. They really have to make sure they do their whatever is within their power to make sure they don't make mistakes. And we can see this story from Basildon Hospital and Tarok University Hospital. All these hospitals coming, having given the wrong diagnosis. You clear people, and then we find it was a mistake. So, to some people it could be very late to go back. There are things you don't say, let us rewind, and maybe as a result of that mistakes, things could advance in maybe fatalities. And it's really bad.
Right, and this story came about as I think it was in the Times when it was reported that a lot of patients who were cleared of cancer, they had wrongly been cleared of it. So a lot of cases will have to be re-looked at again. This is Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewo. I'm here in the studio with Julius Bulutu. He's a broadcaster, political analyst, and editor for Informer East Africa. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we turn attentions to the continent. We look at stories trending across the continent. We'll be right back.
God created man with the dust of the earth. God breathed the breath of life into mankind, so man became a living soul. It is therefore empirical to know and to understand that the earthly cannot survive without the heavenly. Faith today is designed to bring men and women of God from across the world to discuss developmental issues and current affairs backed by the scriptures and the gospels. This will enable us to have a better Ghana and a better world to live in. My name is Apostle Owahin Omaria Champon. I'm going to be your regular host. Remember, the light of God will shine. Don't miss it.
I love social media. I am social media. So I've decided I'm going to hijack your screens for the next 60 minutes as we surf through your Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, and all of it. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. Social media is not just any media. It means fun and connecting to your favorite personalities online from any part of the globe. And when I say fun, I mean real fun. FNN Social.
Majority of you only pay attention to us after years of unremittent persistence and rejections, whilst we challenge the way it has always been done. We have made courageous decisions many of you wouldn't dare dream, forgetting you can live it when you dream it. Wake up with an idea. Research the egg out of the idea. Write a massive business plan. Raise money and create business. Wave goodbye to friends and families as your life is now your business. Stick with it, even on the bad days. Following your massive expansion into a worldwide domination, retire to your favorite highland or go back to step 1 and wash, rinse and repeat.
The CEO's Chair, showing on GNTV UK.
Are you doing something illegal in there?
No. What? Your lesbian fixation?
Huh?
You call that a lesbian fixation? It is happening live. I am just coming from their room.
Rama, this cannot continue. We cannot continue hiding our true feelings.
Hey, why are you locking the door? He who carries the load knows his weight.
So what do we do now?
We bang on the door till she opens it.
What the hell is going on?
We just came out of that room and what we saw there didn't even come close to 2 women.
You know, sometimes the trap doesn't catch the prey you set it for.
Why Solombi? These girls are becoming troublesome.
Are we supposed to tell our clients to wait so we go buy shampoo? We deliver to our clients irrespective of our challenges.
I shall be back. You won't get rid of me so easily.
I love social media. I mean, I am social media. So I've decided I'm going to hijack your screens for the next 60 minutes as we surf through your Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, and all of it. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. Social media is not just any media. It means fun and connecting to your favorite personalities online from any part of the globe. And when I say fun, I mean real fun. FNN Social.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Welcome back to Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. We've been joined in the studio by Priscilla Nwekbo, who is a broadcaster and a political analyst. Good morning to you, Priscilla.
Good morning, Jones. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Finally, you made it.
Indeed.
I didn't want to put it out there just in case.
Oh, no. I mean, at this time of the morning, you don't expect London to be so busy, but goodness gracious. It's ridiculous at times. But yeah, my apologies. It was a drag. I got here.
That's the most important thing. All right, but before we move on to the next topic, we were talking about Brexit, really. Michael Gove, Boris Johnson, Theresa May, still defining that she will lead the country for through Brexit.
I think those bad boys of Brexit, they that's just what they are. Michael Gove and Boris Johnson, the bad boys of Brexit. They need to. I mean, it's all about their ambition, isn't it? Yeah. For them, it's all about who's going to be prime minister. And I think that it's high time they try and put aside their selfish ambitions, because the impact of Brexit on the ordinary man, as I kept on saying during the course of the campaign, Michael Gove and Boris Johnson, they would not worry about their standard of living for 5-10 years after Brexit, because they have sufficient money to live on. But for the vast majority of us, ordinary people, we are going to be heavily impacted. And I think that it's high time they put aside their ambitions and work with Mrs. May. It is not easy for her. And I think that this continuous battle every day, to push her out, gang up against her, we wake up to a Sunday and there's some huge story, and it's all in an effort to try and get rid of her. This was never going to be easy, and they must recognize the role that they played to bring us here. And rather than constantly fighting, it's not all about them, it's about the whole country, and it's about ordinary people. They're going to be the worst impacted. People need to sit down and look and say, how do we work this out so that we can limit the damage and the impact? And because honestly, people are already impacted as it is, and I think that they're just being so unfair in in their attitudes.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to topics trending across the continent. And Julius, we'll start with you. It was reported that South African President Jacob Zuma is under growing pressure to step down following talks with senior members of his ANC party, and this happened yesterday.
Well, Jacob Zuma has been a cat with 9 lives. And they keep on diminishing each day. So I think now he's on his 9th. So we don't know whether he's going to survive this one. But I can say chickens have come home to roost. You know, I remember very well the day I heard ANC as a party has recalled Thabo Mbeki as a president. Where I come from, like in Kenya, it was unheard of. You dare say that in Kenya? People say, are you sure you are not on medication? Because a president can never be recalled by a party. It's a very funny setup. A party cannot recall a president. Actually, it's a president who can sack the party. So it's totally the other way around. But you see, it was the machinations of Jacob Zuma to recall Thabo Mbeki. So why is probably if it's going to happen right now, if the party recalls Jacob Zuma, ANC, we are seeing, chickens coming home to roost. Jacob Zuma having a taste of his own medicine. But again, still, he's supposed to be having an election in 2019. That's next year. Yeah. It's not far off. But I think maybe a lot of people are tired of the controversies surrounding Jacob Zuma. There are words in English you can't say without dancing.
But then that's the point, Priscilla. If elections are just around the corner, surely just leave him, let him see out his mandate, and then it's goodbye.
Yeah, that would be that should be the right thing to do. But I think that as Julius says, his reputation is so tarnished, and there are far too many issues that surround him, unpleasant issues that trail him. And not only that, you again, as Julia says, this is a he did this to Mbeki when Mbeki was then the South African president, and the same situation arose for Mbeki, and he actually championed Mbeki's recall. So it's almost as though karma is at play here for him. But I think that perhaps what he ought to do, the dignifying thing to do maybe would be to resign. We know that Ramaphosa had already said that he wasn't going to push him out, that it would be disrespectful to have to demand for him to leave in the same manner, as it were, as Zuma had done with Mbeki years back. But given the circumstances, as it stands, I think it's an opportunity for those who don't believe that Zuma should continue. They are seizing on the moment and demanding that he should go. And I think the best thing perhaps that he could do for himself is to resign in a dignifying manner.
Would it affect the ANC party in the general election if he carries on?
Well, he can't run in the general election anyway, so it wouldn't do that. But naturally, what they do between this time and there,
I'm talking about the infighting within the party. Yes,
the infighting. The infighting within the party. They've always had it. Their majority is quite high, even though some of the other smaller parties are coming up and gaining grounds. They're not sufficient to be able to take over. So I think that the ANC will still be able to stand. But what they do with Zuma is crucial, and it is very important that they get that right. I think they need to privately persuade him to submit a resignation and go.
Okay, now let's. You want to add something quickly?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Zuma's got nothing new to offer, really, South Africans, because everyone remembers the controversies that surround his presidency more than anything else. Beginning with the lady with HIV and the washing after whatever scandal. To talking about the corruption, building a whole village, one palace for himself. I mean, who does that? So I think the longer he stays, the more damage it does to ANC as a party, because ANC and Mandela, it was about self-sacrifice. It was about freeing people. It was about giving power to people and empowering them economically and in all aspects of life. Selflessness is what Mandela brought to ANC after 27 years in jail and prison. He just chose to stay there for 5 years, not even more than that. And he was very kind, if you remember. At some point, he will go abroad and will leave South Africa under Buthelezi, who was his key opponent. And he won't worry, because this power thing, people, is not what people take it for. It's about empowering people. It's about the country, not just amassing, grabbing everything as if you're going to live 100 years and you know you can't make it.
All right. Sorry. It's funny you touched on this power thing. Tanzanian president, a.k.a. the bulldozer, has tasked the Chief Justice to probe how some judges are able to go on expensive European vacations. According to him, he knows how much they earn. They earn around the same amount of money he earns on a monthly basis, which is about £3,000 a month. So he's saying they should look into it.
I mean, ordinarily you would welcome it coming from the bulldozer, but I think lately there's been a lot of accusation of an abuse of power against him, hasn't there? And I think in some situations he appears to be going too far. Yes, there's nothing wrong with probing to find out how they got their money, but I think that it must not go beyond, establishing that, okay, this is how people got their money, and I think that if he believes that there is some form of corruption or there's some form of underhand things going on, he ought to come up with policies that will prevent or that will ensure that people are dealt with in the right manner, rather than this bulldozing manner of just sort of going in and let's investigate you, and then when we find out, then what? Thereafter, then what happens? But if you put the right policies in place to make sure that people are not able to have access to funds that is not theirs, or where they're being paid to make a certain judgment, it's not allowed and permitted, I think those are the areas he should look into. That's the work he should do more of, as opposed to the abuse of power allegations that has been unfortunately trailing him too, because he came in and everybody was so excited about what he was trying to achieve and applauding him, and you don't want that to be marred, and I think that he's edging in that direction.
Yeah, it's I think still in a way it is right for him to go that direction. I'm telling you, Africa, there are cartels that they are very hard to crack, and they are all networked from the system, from the governments to the judiciary. And to just end that, it will take a lot of strength of character. You see, Magufuli, what's happening with him is, of course, we've seen him shut some newspapers and all. Yeah. That's not pretty. We've seen some opposition party members being shorted and all that. That's not pretty. But when you look into the idea behind what he's doing, it's very good for Tanzanians, because Africa, we are not suffering because there are no laws. We don't need to introduce new laws. I'm promising you, if you know the red light when you're driving means stop, and you still drive through the red light, you don't need another law to tell you stop when there's red light, because if you carry on, there will be accidents. We have beautiful laws. Kenya, Tanzania have beautiful laws. The problem is we lack effecting of the same because of corruption from the effectors of the law. So I have no problem with Magufuli trying to effect the law.
But then as the president, if you're saying that about the judges, then what image are you painting of the judges?
I'll tell you one thing with the judges. I'll tell you one thing, one incident with Magufuli. One time he just went to an area, he chose one judge. He said to him, actually he was giving a talk on a group of judges one time. And he said to them, you keep talking about there's no money, but we give you money as a government. I promise you, he gave them cases within town touching on land ownership and all that have been going on for like 20 years. He just make a ruling, just one ruling. When that one case ends, you see how much money comes back out of that. Because what is happening there? Some of these judges are hijacked by corruption, by the corrupt cartels.
But then
and they get bribed, and a case going on, it will never end.
But isn't that why he needs to make sure, like you said there, we have laws, the laws are available, but if there is no justice, the laws become useless. If the people are not being held accountable, the laws become useless. So, you know, there's laws all over Africa that prevents things that is supposed to favor the people, but we don't see it. And that's because there's a general lack of justice. There is no accountability. Nobody's being held, over here, for instance, I fly through a red light. I will certainly get a letter to my home saying, by the way, at 6 or whatever a.m. this morning, you went through a red light. And for that, this is you need to pay a penalty of this much, or it's a strict liability offense, so you need to be in court on so day to respond to that. So there has to be such a system in place. There's got to be an effective way of ensuring that these things do not go on and ignored. Otherwise, the laws just don't mean anything.
That's what he's trying to achieve through many different ways.
By probing them, you're not achieving that, because you already have an idea. Like you rightly said there, he said it there at that event. So you already know that these things are going on. So really, the question is, when are you going to hold them accountable? When are you going to ensure that justice prevails? When are you going to make these people to say, look, to implement and say, look, this is unacceptable. We cannot continue in this manner in our society. And that, I think, if he was to focus more on that, investigating them is not an issue.
I agree with you, because at the end of the day, I don't want us to go down the road of Kenyatta, president telling us one time there's corruption in State House. And I'm like, why are you telling me as a citizen? What should I do? Come and help you sort it out? I don't want to hear that. I want to hear how many people you are sacked. That's where you're paid. You understand? So to some extent, I agree with you. It's not about telling us what's happening, because we already know. In our quiet moments, we know these things.
All right, let's move on to our next story, which is of Kenya.
How timely.
Moving over.
Wow.
What is going on with Kenya? Obviously, opposition leader Raila Odinga. This was, I think, the last time he came to the studio. He did mention that he will be sworn in. And I thought I didn't want to take it for gospel, but then it has happened. Just give us
it's because last time I was here, I think I was like maybe in the minority when I was telling you it's not over with the Kenya election. But some of among us, like panelists, the other one, we were thinking like, no, it's like a done deal now. No, Kenya is divided. Actually, we have two countries living in one country. And also, we have made history. We are the only country that has got two presidents. And I saw Mugabe complaining, why did you not tell me there could be position for two presidents before I resigned? Although then, in a way, it's not a laughing matter. It's a serious issue. You see, the genesis of Kenya problem where we are now. Number one is two kingdoms fighting each other. We at the day of independence, Jomo Kenyatta, the father of Uhuru Kenyatta, current president, was the president. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was the father of Raila Odinga, vice president, president, vice president, and they fought throughout their life. They never stopped fighting. The controversies, like not seeing eye to eye went on throughout. And we thought, I remember one time being on a program with Raila Odinga and on Jazeera once. And the presenter asked him, why you and Uhuru? Why not any other person?
else.
Because how did you end up there? Like you're both now a presidential candidate, and actually the most obvious stronger ones.
Yeah.
And Raila says it's Kenyans who chose us.
Is it Kenyans or isn't it both of them just fighting their daddy's demons?
No, I think yes. To be fair, Jubilee Party chose Uhuru, NASA chose Raila. And then they end up being the most powerful candidates, presidential candidates. That's a Kenyan thing. But now these fighting.
But they're fighting their father's demons.
In a way, we are thinking, Kenyans have been thinking the same, that this is a family battle. And it's still carrying. We cannot wait 2022. We are none of them. Either maybe one of them will not be a presidential candidate. But to get where we are, also, there's a different other element to the politics of Kenya. Since Kenya became independent, presidency has rotated within two tribes, the Kikuyus and Kalenjins. Kenya has 43 tribes. Some of them are as big as the Kikuyus or Luos. I mean, it's Kikuyus and Kalenjins. Some of other tribes, major tribes, are as big. So it's not to say that they are minority tribes. And then how do you explain that setup?
But then have the other tribes presented candidates, though?
It would have been. They always have.
But they've never.
And this is the way I say, if it was a free and fair election, it wouldn't matter, even if it was one tribe winning, because you have won fair and square. Right. The problem we have had, almost 3/4 of the elections were stolen, were rigged, were marked by irregularities, like the last one that was nullified by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And whoever goes to power among these two tribes, they have a plan to keep the power. I'm telling you that with authority, even they know, because I don't care whether they are listening.
Yeah.
We have, like last time, now the president, they used even to talk about it, say, when I finish my 5 years, it will be my deputy president 5 years before anyone thinks about it. So it's rulership.
All right, okay.
It's a challenge.
All right, we'll continue with this discussion when we come back. We're taking a break. This is Talk Africa with me, Jones. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Majority of you only pay attention to us after years of unremittent persistence and rejections, whilst we challenge the way it has always been done. We have made courageous decisions many of you wouldn't dare dream, forgetting you can live it when you dream it. Wake up with an idea. Research the egg out of the idea. Write a massive business plan. Raise money and create business. Wave goodbye to friends and families as your life is now your business. Stick with it, even on the bad days. Following your massive expansion into a worldwide domination, retire to your favorite highland or go back to step one and wash, rinse and repeat.
The CEO's Chair, showing on GNTV UK.
Doing something illegal in there?
No. What? Your lesbian fixation? Huh? You call that a lesbian fixation? It is happening live. I am just coming from their room.
Rama, this cannot continue. We cannot continue hiding our true feelings.
Hey, why are you locking the door? He who carries the load knows his weight. So what do we do now?
We bang on the door till she opens it.
What the hell is going on?
We just came out of that room and what we saw there didn't even come close to 2 women.
You know, sometimes the trap doesn't catch the prey you set it for.
Why Solombi? These girls are becoming troublesome.
Are we supposed to tell our clients to wait so we go buy shampoo? We deliver to our clients irrespective of our challenges.
I shall be back. You won't get rid of me so easily.
You might ask an artist to explain his art, or ask a poet to explain his poem, but it defeats the purpose. The meaning is only clear through the search. Painting is the silence of thought, the music of sight. Painting is just another way of keeping a diary. If we could say it in words, there'll be no reason to paint.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. Today in the studio we have Julius Mbulutu, who's a broadcaster, a political analyst, editor for Informer East Africa. Also, Priscilla Nwekbo, who's a broadcaster and a political analyst, here with us in the studio this morning. But on the line we have Idris Adeshina. Idris Adeshina is editor of Alternative Africa. Good morning, Idris.
Yes, good morning. I heard the lady say Happy New Year. Maybe I'll say Happy New Year again. It's nice to have you back.
Idris, thanks for joining us. I know you've been following us, you've been following the program so far. Now we're talking about Kenya, and I know you wanted to, you also published the story on your platform, Idris.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. I listened to the Kenyan man saying two tribes have
Julius, his name is Julius Mbulutu.
Yeah, maybe I should tell him that it's like that in Ghana too. It's like that in Nigeria too. And I think it's like that in UK too. The bad boys of Brexit were all colleagues in school. It's been like that everywhere, but it's unfortunate. That's not what is important about Kenya now. What's important about Kenya is the crisis that is going to happen very soon, that is about happening now. You've declared there are two presidents in Kenya now, and I don't think any rightful person anywhere in the world will allow that to happen. Odinga knows quite well that if he does what he has done, the government must respond. This man has been sworn in as president, irrespective of whether they stolen phone or they didn't steal votes. He was asked to participate in that election, and he withdrew personally. He didn't want to do it. So he must allow this man run his term. Otherwise, the Kenyan election, the Kenyan government, even if by the time Odinga becomes president, if he's able to become president at that age, by the time he becomes president, there will be nothing left for Odinga to govern in Kenya. That is the problem. Because the ordinary person will suffer more. The economy of Kenya will suffer more. We followed the economy through. When the crisis was on, Kenya was almost down. The window of opportunity that Kenya had was the fact that the government is installed and things are beginning to pick up. To come up with this election, its declaration now is detrimental to the interests of Kenya. Kenya as a country and Kenya's people. Odinga will have nothing to govern again. You should just look at where war had broken out. You just look at what is happening. My fear is things are not going well in Kenya.
All right,
yes,
Idris,
Julius,
that's what it is. What Idris has touched on with what Raila Odinga has done. Are we not going to see what happened back in 2007?
I think at the moment you can't rule out anything. But it depends on how this is going to be managed. Shall I also say a lot of people are not from Kenya, they don't actually see the whole picture. And you can see clearly, even before Raila saw himself in, you see the opposition has continually called for dialogue. Why dialogue? Because the election and electioneering process managed to split the country almost down the middle. And we are talking about elements, thoughts of secessions, thoughts of separations, where are they coming from? And some of them are being fronted by people from Uru's tribe. These secessionist thoughts are coming from the idea that the country has been ruled by 2 tribes. In a country, you have about 43 tribes since independence, over some 50 years. And that talking will be will bring people back, will begin to unite people. But the government at the moment is so much drunk with power, and I have no apologies to make when I say so. Drunk with power. Which country do you go and you just switch off all the TV channels?
I was just about to come to that.
And they're drunk with power has a lot of meaning. It means you want to rule people by using state power, using coercive power.
Is it because of Odinga's
because
actions?
If you are for, it's not about Odinga. People who don't know Kenya, they think it's about Odinga, it's about Raila. It's not about Raila.
This is internal. Why were the channels shut down then?
Exactly, because they don't want to dialogue. They don't want to talk. The government doesn't want to talk to unite people.
TV stations were shut down because they
didn't want them to broadcast.
They didn't want them to broadcast the inauguration of Raila Odinga.
That's what I'm talking about. Democracy is undemocratic. The Constitution allows for freedom of expression.
Well, no, because
the Constitution allows
what Raila has done.
Yeah.
We're looking at a situation here, like the gentleman on the phone just said, where there's a constitutional crisis looming here. And what does the government do? Raila Odinga had an opportunity when he went to court and he successfully won that bid to have that re-election, to rerun. He should have followed that through. And I think if he had followed that through, there would have been an opportunity for dialogue, better dialogue. What he has done now is that he has thrown away that opportunity. Now you have forced the government of the day, and I'm not saying that I'm on anybody's side here, but just looking in, you're forcing the government of the day to try and maintain peace and calm. Yes, they have taken measures that they believe will bring about the calm and the peace of Kenya right now. And one of those measures is shutting down the TV channels. They shut down the TV channels according to them, because these are TV channels, as you said, we're broadcasting
No. No one understands that bit of channels, because I do. I've been in the media and I know.
Yeah,
but are they funded by
they're independent.
No, they're not.
Channels, as far as
Can
I'm
I say
aware.
something?
Yeah.
Can I say something?
I know Idris. Yeah. Idris, I know you want to come in. Just hold on for a minute. Idris.
Just hold on. Kenyatta's is in media business. He owns K24 and the rest of radio stations. They are on air, right? Why are they not off air? These 3 channels, they are direct competitors of his channels. And also, when we talk about following the law, that's what you guys are not addressing. Kenyatta's government has been told by the court, bring the channels back on.
I was going to bring,
I know that.
They have refused to. On Friday, Miguna, the court ruled it should be released. Up to now, it's not been released. So please, a government that doesn't follow law, don't talk to me about follow the law. Lead by example.
No, I agree with you on that. You can't ignore the court orders. That on their part is wrong. But on the issue of their shutting down the channels in the first instance was because of what had happened with Raila. And I think that, at this point, the government of the day, whether or not we like the way the government of the day was chosen, unfortunately...
You like?
I said whether or not we like it. I said, but unfortunately, Raila had given them that authority to be the government of the day by boycotting the elections.
But then nobody's
You don't go shooting people to say you are president.
All right, let's bring Idris in, because I know Idris.
Well, an election took place, right?
That was not an election.
But did it happen?
That was not an election.
But did it happen?
When judges are shot at and bulldozed.
But at the end of the day...
When the IBC says, the electoral body says, we cannot deliver credible election, and they are forced to have it under the barrel of gun.
So what did the rest of Kenya do?
What the rest of Kenya should do is to go back to negotiating table.
What did they do?
Some were killed, were shot, they were killed.
No. So they didn't
others
do
are gone,
anything
but
during that process.
so they forced a lot of people.
No, but so Kenyans, Kenyans, in effect, by their silence and by Odinga's, refusal to run, inadvertently installed this government. These are the unintended consequences of some actions that we take, and that's what's happened here.
All right, Idris.
Yeah. What's important is that we should. Yes, I know that every leader in Africa rules by force. When Odinga gets to government, if he's able to get to government, you will see that it's not different from Uhuru Kenyatta. They are not different from each other. But the issue is he had a window of opportunity.
Idris, I need you to turn your radio or your set off because we're getting feedback, please.
No, it's on here. Yes, I know that every leader in Africa rules by force. Yeah.
We're listening. Go on.
Yeah, we had a window of opportunity to participate in that election. Everybody held the judgment in Kenya when Odinga went to court. Nobody knew a court in Kenya funded by government could disqualify the president could disqualify an election conducted by government. That was an opportunity for Odinga to take back and expose this government now of all the atrocities committed by taking part in that election. We know they will rig that election and the world will know. By withdrawing from that election, he's lost that opportunity. This government has, if it won by just 2 votes, he has won. He should allow this government rule. The Kenyan man, if he was the president today, will he allow Odinga run a parallel government?
His name is Julius. Yes, Julius. Let us take a response from Julius.
Let me respond to you.
Idris.
What matters, Idris? The thing is, Kenya is about the country, not about Julius or Raila or even Uhuru, for that matter. And I'll tell you one thing: that was not an election because when Raila described it, and I don't speak for Raila and don't support any party, by the way, to make that very clear. He said it was Uhuru running against Kenyatta because there was no other formidable candidate. No single candidate who took part. He went to election alone. The best thing they should have done was to maybe postpone the election and sort out the issues surrounding the electoral body, which was 100% compromised. That would have been the best way. But where we are right now, you're saying, what do you do? Would you allow Raila to run alternative government? No. People are getting it wrong. Raila is not running an alternative government. In fact, when he's taken what he calls the people's movement, it's like an alternative pressure to get the government to the negotiating table. There was
is that not what an opposition government
That's what I'm talking
anyway?
about.
What would they negotiate?
We are calling it the focus is on electoral justice. Electoral justice, it means we should have a country whereby the electoral body will never again be compromised, will never again be forced by guns to conduct a sham election, will never again maybe receive bribes to rule in favor of any party. The electoral justice is in the constitution, very well laid. An election is supposed to involve all Kenyans. What you are calling election, what happened right now? No. Almost half Kenyans, they never went to vote. So in terms of the law and the constitution, it's not recognized. Because by the constitution, a proper election must represent all Kenyans. So where we are now, the focus has been on electoral justice. And that is something that many people are not keen or they are not talking about. What we are telling Kenyans, accept and move on. But we accepted in 2000 and moved on.
Yeah.
Why are we where we are? Why did we have another problem 2013? These issues are about being sorted. I'll give you an example. For example, Nigeria. Nigeria, despite its weakness and all that, at least when it comes to presidency, this kind of rotational presidency, which addresses the problem we have in Kenya right now. 50 or more than 50 years presidency rotating between two. But it's still the same problem
in Nigeria, though.
But it's totally different. There are things that have to be resolved.
It's still the same issues. But you see, the thing is this. I hear what you're saying, Julius, and I absolutely understand it. However, I think that Odinga still has that opportunity as an opposition leader, to be able to take the government to task on issues and to be able to bring these issues to the table for conversation. But doing it in the manner that he's doing it, now you begin to you turn some people against you, because even at his own people's inauguration, as it were, his wife apparently was not able to make it. His supposed deputy was not able to make it. So there were some key figures in his own party who were not present.
He was stopped by the government.
By that
the government will allow them to make it.
Okay, whatever that was, but they were not there. So that doesn't look good. You see, for you as a Kenyan, and for what is within, it's different. But for the rest of us from the world, we're looking in and we're thinking, but hang on a minute. You're an opposition leader. You already have the followership. You already have, everybody on your side. Why then did you not follow the law? Because whether or not people choose to vote, the fact that an election has been called, and they had barely 60 days or so within the law to do that, so they were short of time. So to be able to deal with those issues that you made mention may not have been so easy to deal with within that period of time that they had, because they had to follow the law and run the election. Is that so? So if that was the case, then he should have gone through that process, and then you take the government to court. You can then take them to court again if there were malpractices, because both of them are not following the law. Odinga himself is, going contrary, and so is Kenyatta. So you're saying it's about the ordinary Kenyan people. It's true, but for these two men, it isn't. For these two men, it's a private issue, and they have been fighting their daddy's demons and battles, and forgetting the ordinary Kenyan men and women and children that are concerned and affected by this situation. So I don't agree that, what Odinga is doing is right. I think he fails to give consideration to the masses of Kenyan people. He could have handled this a lot better. I don't agree with Kenyatta either, because historically, if I recall correctly, like you said, one was a president, the other one was a vice, and it was a situation that somebody had said, hey, I will allow you to go. And then it became a situation of, I'm just going to take over. And that's what we've been fighting ever since between these two families. The Kenyan people need to make a decision that says, listen, we've had enough of you, Kenyatta. We've had enough of you, Odinga. You're not the only Kenyans that we have in this country. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you for what your families have done for us. We appreciate that, but step aside.
So where can we export them?
I think that's a...
Can we export them to Ghana?
You don't need to export. You don't need to export them, but you need to ban them from running.
All right, Idris, let me hear Idris' final thoughts on this.
What mandate is Odinga claiming? What mandate? What mandate is he claiming?
Mandate, as declaring himself as a people's president. Can I tell you something why there is no law broken there? All right? When you talk about the oath Raila took, it's nothing to do with the Kenya's national oath.
Yeah, but it's treason.
It's not treason.
It could amount to treason.
No.
Okay, go on.
Let me just clear this up. Let me clear this up. The moment Raila chose to declare himself the people's president, and the oath he took, even in the wording, is totally different away from the constitution.
Hold on to your thoughts for me. Idris, just stay on there quickly. I'm going to take another break. When we come back, we will wrap up this segment, and then we'll keep it moving, move on to our topic of the day. This is Talk Africa with me, John Sewa. We're taking another break. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Are you doing something illegal in there?
No. What? Your lesbian fixation? Huh? You call that a lesbian fixation? It is happening live. I am just coming from their room.
Rama, this cannot continue. We cannot continue hiding our true feelings.
Hey, why are you locking the door? He who carries the load knows his weight. So what do we do now?
We bang on the door till she opens up.
What the hell is going on?
We just came out of that room and what we saw there didn't even come close to 2 women.
You know, sometimes the trap doesn't catch the prey you set it for.
Why Solombi? These girls are becoming troublesome.
Are we supposed to tell our clients to wait so we go buy shampoo? We deliver to our clients irrespective of our challenges.
I shall be back. You won't get rid of me so easily.
E-News Redefined. Wondering what's going on in the life of your favorite entertainment personality? Wonder no more, because the Daily Setbit has got you covered with the latest in entertainment news, gossip, facts, rumors, and of course, some sizzling interviews.
Not just that, did you know actor Jimmy Fox's real name is Eric Malone Bishop? I bet you didn't know. On the Did You Know segment, we bring you some mind-boggling facts you might not know about your favorite celebrity.
We don't only set the trend with our stories, we bring you trending videos and images that have gone viral on social media. Your entertainment just got better.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Welcome back to Talk Africa with me, Johnson. Well, in the studio we have Julius Mumblutu, who is a broadcaster and political analyst, also editor for Informer East Africa. Also Priscilla Nwakpo, who is a broadcaster and a political analyst. We have Idris on the line. Idris is editor for Alternative Africa. Now, we will be moving on to our next segment very, very shortly. We're asking the question, what is it like to be an ethnic minority in the 21st century in Britain? Okay, now this is not just for people in Great Britain. I know a lot of people watch us and listen to us who are outside Britain, Italy, Germany, Spain. We'd like to hear your experiences as well. Plus, in the US. So do send in your thoughts, okay? If you want to call into the studio, it's 0203-735-8820. And that's 0203-286-0185. This is Talk Africa. I just spoke my language there, but I guess you didn't realize, did you? Now, I know Idris, you're on the line. Let me give you a few minutes so that we can wrap up and move on to our next segment. Idris.
Yeah, it's good that all of us are talking about it now. But the question I'm asking is, what mandate Dinga claiming? What mandate? Or what election was he being sworn in? He took the case to court, and the government, the judgment has been nullified. That election has been nullified. So he had which mandate is he claiming to swear himself as president? He didn't contest in any election. How can you suddenly become the president when you didn't contest in an election? That's the issue there. If you are participating in this election now, we can know that, okay, his mandate was stolen. Which mandate was he stolen? He took the case to court, and the judge nullified that election. It was based on that court judgment that new election was conducted. Odinga did not participate in that election. So Odinga he should not be claiming the mandate. He doesn't have any mandate now. And that is my problem. But it's more about the Kenyan people. It's more about the Kenyan economy. It's more about a nation now that are trapped under the power struggle between two families.
And
So
let me just bring you, Julius. Stability and peace in Kenya is so vital, not only for Kenyans, but also surrounding neighboring countries around Kenya.
Yeah, Kenya is strategically is very important country for the rest of the world and Africa. And in terms of stability locally, as in Kenya, there is no one who doesn't know how important that could be. But tell that to supporters of Raila, and tell that to more than half the country who support him, and they will tell you one thing: the threat to stability and security is the theft of electoral victory. Without sorting that, it's not going away. As I'm speaking to you today, right now, we have people protesting in one of the police stations because Miguna has not been released. Why is the government disobeying court orders? Why has the government been forcing? Why has the government hijacked the judiciary? you see that's where the problem is, and it's a Kenyan problem. Other people don't understand it because you don't understand the dynamics of the local politics. But was Raila's method the right way? I don't advocate for anarchy. I advocate for peace. I advocate for democracy. But whichever way you look at it, when things really went wrong, it was the moment the election victory was messed up.
Okay.
So that is what Kenyans want to sort out. Whether it's a Jubilee government or NASA, that is an issue Kenyans have to sort out.
Finally,
for peace.
I agree, but you know, we do understand it, because in every country around the world, you will find that the judiciary, you know, it's always in the government's pocket, if you like, and people are flouting court orders all over the place. Case in point, Nigeria. Having said that, I still think that there was an opportunity for Odinga to handle this better, and he has mishandled it. And I think now we need to have other pressure groups within Kenya that are going to rise with the people beyond these two men, to be able to bring everybody to the table for a conversation, for a peaceful resolution, because this is not going to end in a peaceful manner. It's not right for the government to flout court orders, but they will probably say that, you know, if we don't do it this way, we're going to have this militia that Odinga is creating, because that's how they're going to term it.
All right. Well, you know, African Union have released a statement where it says that it rejects all actions that undermine constitutional order and the rule of law. So
and that applies both parties, government and NASA.
Yeah. Okay, I know we have other things to talk about, but Idris, we'll leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on Talk Africa. Idris, hopefully we'll get you in the studio probably probably during the week at some point, Idris. We'll move on.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
With me, Jones Ewa, we finished with stories trending across the continent. So Julius has left the studio. In the studio, we still have Priscilla Inouakpo, and also we've been joined by Richard Boateng, who is a lawyer. Thank you for coming in this morning, Richard. You're looking rather dapper this morning yourself.
Trying to follow your footsteps. Good morning to the listeners and your viewers.
I actually didn't know Richard and Priscilla knew each other. So
it's a small world.
It's a very, very small world.
It's a very small world.
It's a humbling world for me.
Oh, please.
Greatness.
Let me tell you how we reconnected. He's ever so kind.
Yes.
I hadn't seen him for many years, and apparently, according to him, one day he comes home, he was in Ghana.
Right.
He comes home and he hears a voice on his TV.
Right.
And he's thinking, hang on, that voice sounds so familiar.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
So he goes to check out the voice, and there I was. Yes. And then we made contact via social media. So thank you.
No, glad to have the both of you here this morning. Now, our topic of the day. If you can cast your mind back since the Windrush, which was in 1948, when Great Britain, after Second World War, needed people to come to this country to work, and came in the Caribbean. And then we had the Indians, and then the Africans also came over. So if we're looking at since the first generation came here, and looking at our situation right now in the 21st century in Great Britain, we're asking one simple question. What is it like being an ethnic minority in the 21st century in Great Britain? We'd like to hear your thoughts, your experiences as well, whether you were born here or you came over here. We'd like to hear your thoughts. But before that, earlier, we went out, we spoke to a few people about this topic, and this is what they had to say.
What does it feel like being black in Britain?
The government has come with its academies, free stuff. Our children are being thrown out of school, exclusion from schools, and they are now, there's a school prison pipeline, because they're expelled from school, they're on the streets, they're picked up by the police, get into the criminal justice system, and that's where they stay. So the situation now is absolutely grave for our young people. And of course, now we're talking about Brexit.
If I lived somewhere else in Britain, it would be much harder to be ethnic minority and I think being fully accepted into whichever area you live in. So it's difficult. It's got its plus sides because we're progressing, but then again, it's still stuck in its old ways. So the plus is obviously we bring a lot of vibrance, something new to the country. I guess the negative, being an ethnic minority living here, is it's still a white country, it's still British, and I think about 90 whatever % of it. And I guess most people tend to think of their own before they give opportunities to others. Obviously, with the media at the moment being very anti-immigrant and all that rhetoric from politicians, and with Brexit, it's a very difficult time, I think.
Well, I just think it's rough. Nothing ain't really happening for none of us. It's just the same old. It's just to me, it's just like a smoke screen. Boy, like Brixton now, that's pushing out the black people out of Brixton. It was pure yuppie and that coming in and pricing us out. Everything's getting expensive. So to me, nothing has changed for me. If you understand what I'm saying, nothing has really changed. Even though you talk about this Brexit and this and that, it ain't gonna benefit. It ain't benefiting us black people. No matter what they do, it's not to benefit us. It's not to benefit us. It's to benefit them and their pockets and stuff there.
With more awareness about different ethnic background and with the culture of people coming from all over the world, I would say it's definitely better. Obviously, there are still gaps and rooms for improvement, but as a kind of someone from ethnic background, it's okay. I think it's getting better in certain areas.
So we are now arrived at Brexit, where the government doesn't really know what it wants to do about Brexit. But that's an opportunity for black people, because guess what? The government has to pivot away from the EU towards the Commonwealth. And guess what? The Commonwealth is black and brown people, 2.2 billion of them. And that gives black people an opportunity now to engage in the discussion about Brexit. Because then if you're Nigeria or Ghana or the Caribbean, you can say, okay, stop. We need to think about businesses now. How can we now get into business in a big way, and be ahead of it? So we got to be part of the discussion, I think, about Brexit. And that's where we are right now. It's about economic empowerment for the black community.
Okay, so that was some bites of a few people we spoke to about this topic. And I have on the phone is Stephen Paul Del Sol, who works for ABC International Education Consultancy. He's been working there for 25 years. He was actually the man that spoke about there being opportunity for people from ethnic minority background after Brexit. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning, Stephen.
Thank you.
Right, Stephen, before that, you did mention, you touched on something really important when we spoke to you. You said, in terms of education, since Margaret Thatcher came into power, her plans more or less was the downfall in terms of ethnic minorities when it comes to through the educational system, ended up failing.
Yes, I think it first of all started with the economy, because education is linked to the economy. It started with the using unemployment, mass unemployment, to get at the National Union of Mine Workers, which was after Scargill was leader at the time. And therefore it created unemployment. So if your parents were unemployed, then it makes it very difficult, because at that time, of course, there were lots of strikes. Everybody was striking, quite rightly so. Teachers were on strike, and the students, pupils at the time, were caught in that strike. So the whole education system was affected. It actually dampened down on the hopes and aspirations of students, because if there are no jobs for their parents, then there will be no jobs for them too. So I think that's what we saw during the Margaret Thatcher era. And also the housing situation too had deteriorated, because the good quality housing, Margaret brought in a scheme for people to buy their own houses. But that was an attempt towards gentrification, towards getting into the aspiring working class to have them turn to becoming tourists. And therefore it reduced the stock of social housing, affordable social housing for the many. And that's what we're reaping today. So if a student isn't coming from a good home, the parents have a good job, then of course that affects their academic achievement, motivation, and other types of
Okay,
motivation.
now we're in the 21st century, as opposed to everybody watching and listening to us. What is it like being an ethnic minority in the 21st century in Great Britain? What would you say, Stephen?
Well, I think in the 21st century, we have to use all the negative influences that impact on us to use it as a springboard to go positive, to be proactive. And I think that's why I talk about Brexit. I think Brexit provides an opportunity for us here in this country to begin to not think about, having a life in this country, because the Chancellor of the Exchequer told us in the last budget that there won't be any growth in the next 5 or 10 years. So the economy is shrinking. That's the number one. And if you are always at the economy is shrinking, where do you make your money? How do you actually get money for a house, to raise a family, for education? The only way a black people can do that is to pivot towards Africa, towards Nigeria, Ghana, and that's where the land is, that's where the resources are, and begin to get a kind of education. I'm talking about the digital economy now. You should have more black people doing computer science, get into sort of apps and get into algorithms and begin to engage with the new technology in a big way. And also begin to get more into agriculture, I believe, because there is a food shortage in different parts of the world, especially as the Sahara Desert is moving into northern Nigeria and all of these other places. We do need agronomists who, people who are doing research in this area to begin to think, how can we grow the desert? How can we sort of make the desert bloom again? And of course, food for grains will provide more food for your cattle and different other sort of livestock and so on. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to really seize the opportunity, 21st century. Let it be an African 21st century.
All right, thank you very much for talking to us this morning. That was Stephen Paul Delso, who works for ABC International Educational Consultancy. He's been there for 25 years. Priscilla, you're just looking at me because I know that you probably disagree with what Stephen was saying. After Brexit, there's hope for the Commonwealth.
It's interesting. During that whole campaign, a lot of Africans were saying the same things, and if you had listened to Boris Johnson every time he spoke, and he made mention of the Commonwealth, he spoke about New Zealand, he spoke about Canada, spoke about Australia. I don't recollect him mentioning any of the African Commonwealth countries or the Caribbean Commonwealth countries. So I just don't understand when I hear people of African origin, I hate using color or black, saying this is an opportunity for Africa. I mean, we've had colonial rule, and it's never been an opportunity. When did we go from slave-master relationship to equals, when we have never demanded that? It's not an opportunity for Africa in the same sense of the word. I do think that it's an opportunity for Africa to sit up, get her act together, and to be able to, because it's an opportunity to call the shots for them. And it shouldn't be business as usual. But I don't see it in the same way as we continue to say it's an opportunity for Africa, because, it just isn't.
Okay, Richard, let me get your personal view on this, what it's like being an ethnic minority in 21st century Britain.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I think it's a multifaceted approach, perspective, and outlook. Being a first-generation British, I find that I've been blessed to have the opportunities that prevail within this country or within this community. I often consider some of my counterparts in other parts of the world, and realize that there is a huge dearth of opportunity that is lacking, and certainly in the African continent, and particularly Ghana, where we look at options as far as grooming, growth, and opportunities when you become an adult. So I think ultimately, obviously we have problems, but I think ultimately there are many pluses. The difficulty I find is the inability or the unwillingness to capitalize on those opportunities, which I'm sure we'll come to in due course.
Priscilla?
What does it mean to be a person of African origin in 21st century Britain?
Yes.
I think that it's quite sad that in 21st century Britain we're still asking such a question, because you would have thought with the colonial rule and the integration and migration that by now, you know, Richard is the first generation and we have second and third generation. You would have thought by now we should all be comfortable with this now. It should no longer be a question asked in the negative. It should be a question or a discussion in the positive. You know, I think that it's unfair to ignore the contributions. I find that when we look at the statistics, for instance, France recognizes that they have millions of people of African origin. You know, their stats tells us that. But in the United Kingdom, we claim, we quantify them in the hundreds of thousands, when in effect it's actually millions. So we downplay the contributions, the impact, the effects, and all of that, and by so doing, it justifies the inequality that is displayed and the racist actions and behaviors that we experience. I just think it's unfair that 21st century Britain, we're still having this conversation, but I'm hoping that the Markle effect is going to, you know, bring some change.
If I may, yes. I agree with you 100%, Priscilla, but I think for so often we've been outside knocking on the door hoping to be let in, and I think that needs to change, because until that changes, we will always, listen, quite frankly, I've got food in my plate. You're outside, you're hungry. You don't ask, you can ask me, I might give you some. But if you cook your own meal, I may have to ask you for some instead. The problem we have right now, and I was at the Lamy review prior to the actual report being published, and I went to a couple of them, and the conversation was very much similar to what we're having now, in that, how is it that for so long, we've had 2 generations, maybe 3 generations, we're still feeling like we're outside the door knocking for an answer to be allowed in? The problem is we haven't taken control. We haven't engineered a system where we have a voice that is heard and cannot be ignored.
What's that system?
Right. So we have our Asian counterparts, we have our Chinese counterparts, we have our Jewish counterparts. And let's look at those 3. What I find intriguing about this is they each have an economic base. Their voices are heard, and you seldom hear of a Jewish guy who has been incarcerated. Certainly they're not populating the criminal justice system. We don't hear that. We do see some Asians, but not a huge amount, and certainly we don't see that many Orientals. Is it coincidental? No. It's because they have engineered a system. I went to school with a very good individual. His name is Alan Wong. And I remember Alan's English was very, very non-existent. It was nominal. But him and I went to school, and his focus was second to none. I have to admit, I was distracted, and I guarantee you that it's no surprise that today this guy's the CEO of an IT company, and his whole system of working was engineered by his parents. I also went to school with quite a few Asians, some of whom, I have to say, during my youth, we would ridicule them because they were overpopulated in their cars and houses. But what we didn't realize, they had a system of emancipation that would help each other to nurture growth and then become emancipated. We as a people, all we ever do is consume. And that is a difference that needs to be changed. We can't keep asking for a handout. We need to create our own situation. And that's the difference.
I agree with you to an extent. I do. I think it was in 2010, it was reported that, you know, black women, for instance, spend more money on hair products than their white counterparts. Now, the figure around there of the spending power of the BME community was 300 billion. That's a whole lot of money. Where is it going? So it's not that the spending, our economic base is not there. It is there. Though that money is there, but it is what we do with it. I think we need to be a little bit more intentional. Now, listening to some of the comments that were being made there about, Brett tickets, we're not going to benefit. The mistake we tend to make is that we see ourselves different to the wider society. But we actually exist within the wider society. So, for instance, the government cannot make a separate law concerning your particular rent. Everybody's rent is going to be subject to, whatever everybody else is paying. So when we need to get away from that focus of, yes, I know racism exists, but we need to get away from that focus as, oh, this is against us, or this is, or, we're not involved in it. Because the wider society, the wider economy, the wider things that exist, we are all a part of that. When you go, for instance, to get on the bus, you don't pay a different amount because you are of African origin.
But then quickly, Priscilla, if I may interject, reports indicates that if you take a black person compared to the white counterpart, when they finish university, the white counterpart is more likely to get employed than the black person.
I was going to come to that.
And in terms of how much they get paid,
I
the
agree.
white counterpart earn more than the black person.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And the other aspect of it, which is why I said I agree with Richard to an extent, is that the other aspect of it is that society is such that, yes, we make the effort to integrate. We make the effort to be a part of it. But then there is also that thing where, unbeknown to us, no matter how much you have made that effort, society is such that they will deny you. You may have the skill, the ability, you have everything it takes, you probably have more experience. You've got it going on.
And Priscilla, you've got everything you've just listed there, but I have to deny you from making more comments because I need to take a break. This is Talk Africa with me, Jones. So we're taking a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with our discussion. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
You might ask an artist to explain his art, or ask a poet to explain his poem, but it defeats the purpose. The meaning is only clear through the search. Painting is the silence of thought, the music of sight. Painting is just another way of keeping a diary. If you could say it in words, there'll be no reason to paint.
E-News Redefined. Wondering what's going on in the life of your favorite entertainment personality? Wonder no more because the Daily Setbit has got you covered with the latest in entertainment news, gossip, fact, rumors, and of course, some sizzling interviews.
Not just that, did you know actor Jimmy Fox's real name is Eric Malone Bishop? I bet you didn't know. On the Did You Know segment, we bring you some mind-boggling facts you might not know about your favorite celebrity.
We don't only set the trend with our stories, we bring you trending videos and images that have gone viral on social media. Your entertainment just got better.
I love social media. I mean, I am social media. So I've decided I'm going to hijack your screens for the next 60 minutes as we surf through your Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, and all of it. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. Social media is not just any media. It means fun and connecting to your favorite personalities online from any part of the globe. And when I say fun, I mean real fun. FNN Social.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. We say goodbye to Priscilla. Priscilla has vacated the building. We've been joined by Kevin George, who's a human performance consultant. He's joined us in the studio. We also have Richard Boateng, who is a lawyer. We are streaming live on Facebook. Go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK. We're also live on Sky Channel 291. GNTV. You can listen to us on GN Radio, on TuneIn, or you can go online. You can listen to us on there as well. So there's no excuse, okay? Do send your thoughts and comments in. If you want to call in, it's 0203-735-8820 or 0203-286-0185. If you want to send a text message, it's 0793-286-1328. If you just join us, we're asking a question on our topic of the day. The question we're asking is, what is it like to be an ethnic minority in the 21st century in Great Britain? I've heard Richard's thoughts on that. So personally for you, Kev, what is it like if I may ask you the same question?
It depends in which, in terms of work, in terms of just living in general. I mean, it's such a wide topic to talk about, but what I would say is, obviously the struggle's still there. I think it's a bit different now because people are becoming more aware of particular struggles, whether it be in sport, whether it be in the corporate world, whether it be in education. So I think there's more of awareness now, but the struggle is there still.
There's more of awareness, but does that actually change anything?
It does, because I think before, when you had lack of equality, there was ignorance created excuses. So now, because there's awareness and it's more of a discussion, you cannot choose to be ignorant anymore, because the conversation's taking place and the internet is there now. Do you see what I'm saying? So whether it's to the killings in America, which does happen here as well, people are now thinking, whereas before people would create their own narrative. They say, oh, they probably did something wrong anyway, because the media would put out a particular picture of that person looking like that, like they are committing a crime or they're being aggressive. But when you are seeing videos of people being murdered who are having their hands up in the air, and other similar stories where they actually can cause no harm, you know, it just shows the kind of position that the black people are going through.
Okay, so now you're talking about in terms of issues with the law, police brutality. When it comes to the UK, it's somewhat a bit different. However, in terms of stop and search, this is something that has really bothered the black community, especially because reports suggest that if you're black, you're more than likely to get stopped. And I want to know, as a lawyer, if I was to get stopped, do I have a right to oppose the police stopping me, to search me?
It would depend on the basis on which you're being stopped. The general rule is that upon being stopped, the police has to tell you why, what they're hoping to achieve by the stop, and let you know their name and the police station to which they're associated if they're going to search you. Ordinarily, there has to be reasonable grounds for a suspicion that they're going to find X on you. And in a way, you know, you can't divorce this heavy-handedness with the perception we create. It's rather unfortunate, and I'm not for a second trying to excuse the powers that be, but I do believe that as a people, we have a responsibility to create the right perception. In other words, we are walking advertising boards. How do we want to be perceived? For example, if I'm in the studio and I came in dressed as a quote-unquote hood rat, it might create a perception. If I went to a dinner dance and I appeared as a hood rat, it would create a perception. The question is, what is it I want? How do I want to be perceived? So when a police officer stops you, you want to eliminate as much as possible any potential grounds that they may rely upon, even if it's a falsity.
But not everybody can dress as smart as you.
It's not about being smart. It's about being prudent. And by that I mean this. So let's use the law as an example. Right. I recently defended an individual who the allegation was just the possession of a knife, but the narrative was a gangland stabbing, right? Now, the word gangland creates an impression. Guess how my client turns up in court? Dressed to reinforce the perception of a gang member. Now, no matter how true the narrative or false the narrative may be, perception carries the day. He got convicted. And I did say to him, Why would you do that? Why would you not make the effort to be prudent, to create the impression? People don't wear suits to particular venues, courts, whatever, for the sake of it. It's to create a perception. We have a responsibility to ensure we're perceived in the way we want to be perceived. And if we're perceived in a particular way, that means that the police are going to descend on you, then unfortunately that's the consequences of the perception you create.
Kevin, do you agree with what Richard is saying?
In terms of court, yes, but in general, no. And that's how people see things in terms of if you've got a hoodie on or if you've got that image. And that's what, in a way, allows police to target young black people. Because of if you've got, media and film, it tells you that this is what a thug looks like. When I worked in Wandsworth Prison this time last year, I was so shocked. I was so curious. I was thinking, what did this guy do? What did he do? Because he didn't fit the image or my mind of what prisoners look like. That image came from media. So police carry that image in their head. We all do unconsciously. But unfortunately, that image is of us. It's not of thugs or criminals in general. It's of how young black people are, and that's why they are more prone to get stopped. And I know there was something that came out when they started to talk about stop and search, that they gave out these stats about black youth. But the thing is, the reason why that's broken and backwards is because when you look at the ghettos in London, that's where they've packed up poor black people. Whereas if you go to for example, Edinburgh in Scotland, listen, it is hood up there. So it's one good thing saying, okay, these are the stats, but those stats are very manipulated. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying. But Richard, is it a thing where, because you're saying we need to take some form of responsibility?
Not just some form, a huge dose.
A huge responsibility. Absolutely. But then, as within the black communities, there is, if I can say, it's a culture, it's a lifestyle, it's the way people are brought up, and that's the lifestyle that they know. Are you saying that people need to change the way they live or change the way that they do things? No.
Well, let me amplify what I'm trying to get across. Essentially, Kevin is quite right that the police will find an excuse to stop you if you meet their particular perception of someone as doing something wrong. Now, unfortunately, the stereotype rules the day. Now, I'm saying that when we are hanging out on streets, when we are with our group of friends, we act in a particular way. That's just unique to us. But there comes a consequence, because the people that are in charge, the powers that be, generally don't come from our culture. Now, we can either go through the process and endure that and then, win the day, or try and create a scenario that makes that perception unfounded. And by that, I mean this. The same group of kids don't have to be wearing the act in a particular manner. It's a lot to do with whatever justification they have. We tend to lend support to it. Although the search may yield negative, we tend to give them something to do. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm just saying that, look, I grew up in the streets of London. I am everyone that knows me will know that I experienced all of this. I've seen the sublime to the ridiculous. And it dawned on me that I have a responsibility to ensure, if I don't want to be bothered, take some responsibility to eradicate or remove that, eliminate it to a degree. And that's what I'm saying is we need to kind of measure how we're perceived so that we don't have to fall into that trap. You don't get stopped today, every day, like you would have done maybe 10 years ago.
I used to get stopped. Yes, I used to get stopped a lot, especially growing up in Brixton. And this was my issue with it, because I remember I went training with Jamie. On the way back, I was really tired. I had my football kit. I walked past the police. 2 minutes later, I'm being held, pushed up against the wall, like I've done something. And I felt like it's because I fitted the bill, but I didn't dress in a shabby way.
Listen, can I just say something? Because for me, I look at these conversations, and I've had so many of them, and I look at it as like, we're looking at what we shouldn't do. But I don't think people of other cultures need to have that conversation. And that's a problem to me. That's one. But two, if that's the case, we'll always lose, because I look at, when I was younger, my brothers and my cousins, they were doing photo shoots, right? Like in the bedroom, because they wanted to be like Jodeci, who were posing like in woolly hats and ski masks and things like that. Now, when you look at it, that is like the extreme. But you tell kids who want to be like their role models, who are the music videos, and you, as adults, remember, we are the boring adults now. You try telling kids, don't do this and don't do that. I'm not listening to you if I'm a kid. So what I'm trying to say is, I understand the point, and it's easy for us to say, but we need to think as teenagers. And the teenagers are going to listen to that. And to be fair, they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to.
I think, forgive me for interrupting.
Yeah, go on.
Kevin, when we started this conversation, Kevin was quite right to say that there's so many facets to this conversation. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is the be-all and end-all. I am saying, however, that it's part of the solution. I think the ultimate is we need to control the narrative. We need to control how we're perceived. We need to control the impact. So, for example, if I've had many fights with the police for a variety of reasons, professionally and personally, where I remember once at Wembley Police Station, I had a huge ding-dong with an officer. It ended up escalating to the chief superintendent, who happens to be black. And he was saying to me, well, why are you being so sensitive? So therein lies the point. Now, whether that's justified or not, I won't get into that. What I will say is this, that if we had a lot more people, because I have a feeling that that chief superintendent felt isolated, even though he was black. He felt he had to control the narrative and follow the script. So if we have a lot more of us in positions where we can actually dictate the narrative, then it filters down. But I am saying this, though, you're quite right. Our kids want to be kids. Nothing more, nothing less. Black, white, indifferent. They want to be kids. But as parents of black kids, as black parents, we have a responsibility to minimize the impact these police officers' antics can have on them.
I agree.
And that's what I'm saying.
All right, let's look at another aspect of it. It is reported that people from ethnic minorities are highly more educated on average than and are likely to attend university than white Britons. Okay. However, when it comes to going for jobs, as I was discussing with Priscilla earlier on, there seems to be a huge gap between their white counterparts. So how do we solve that issue?
Okay. I have a very interesting conundrum or solution to that. It's a conundrum and a solution. I think certainly being the first generation British, those of us in my situation would remember that our parents, when they came to these shores, had to hustle. So trying to put food on the table was the fundamental objective. So you'd have like ships at night, ships passing each other at the night. I'll coming from school, my parents are running off, and we might have a word or two.
Come a bit closer to your microphone for me.
We might have a word or two about how my day was, how school was, etc. I contrast that with my white, Jewish, Asian counterparts, who tend to have what I call a dining table conversation. Now, the dining table conversation is usually of an evening, people sit together, the family, and they have a conversation about how their day went. Ultimately, they find out who wants to do what, and they will start referring them to Uncle Johnny, Uncle Jim, Auntie Jemima. We don't have that. And as a people, to this day, 2018, we still don't, generally speaking, have that dining table conversation, nor do we create the referral system that we are so blessed to have. The last point I'd make is this: financial education. I remember having a conversation with a group of my white counterparts, about 5 of them, and there was about 11 of us, highly dressed, really looking smart, but our total net worth would not exceed £100,000. The people we were speaking to, the one who had the least portfolio was worth £250,000 11, 12 years ago. Now, what becomes apparent is this: they create funds. I know my Asian counterparts do that, our Jewish counterparts do that, so that when they get to the point where they need to emancipate, they do what they want rather than what they have to. We don't have that luxury. And that needs to change from the way we think about money, from the way we control money, from the way we use money, and unite, forging links. That's the way we can get around that.
You agree with him, Kev?
Yeah, I agree to an extent. And what I mean by that is, I know that conversation has been happening in terms of people saying about the Jewish and the Asians, but the reason why it's difficult for black people is, remember, we're in England, in a place that we obviously, we don't have a strong foothold. But then when you look at African countries and Caribbean countries, even there we don't. We don't control the tourism, we don't control much of the stuff that's there. So when you look at, say, the Jewish people and the Asians, they have systems in place where they can have uncle this and uncle that, whereas a lot of black families, you could be the only one who's doing really well. So then what happens is like you could only exhaust a limited amount of connections. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who do not have that network. It's almost like you're the top of that chain, and hopefully when you bring up your family and you help out the ones coming up underneath you and giving them advice, hopefully that they create a network. But at the moment, I feel that we don't have that yet. And also, with regards to money and opportunity, I think because of the generation above us had to struggle so much, our attitude and mentality sometimes, in a good way and a bad way, can be tainted in terms of money could be seen as something that you're very precious about, so you might not invest it into certain things and you're very tight with it. But at the same time, it has the benefits because you look after it and you understand where it comes from. So there's a plus and a negative. I think if you get brought up in money, then and in systems and around business, you have a different outlook on life. So sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it is difficult when you come from, the African and Caribbean, because you don't have that. Like, especially if I was someone, for example, and I'm not saying all Asian people are gonna have this, but if I'm from India, I might have a family member who's owning something massive in India. But when I go to the Caribbean or I go to Africa and I'm in a hotel and it's owned by an American or Englishman, and that's the biggest form of income they've got is tourism, I'm like, hold on a minute. So do you see what I'm saying? That foundation, that's what we struggle with.
And therein lies the point. I agree with you. That's where we struggle, and I agree with you. It's a problem, but it's not a problem we can't surmount. Because, as I said earlier, I went to school with first generation Asians, Orientals, who today have emancipated. One of the things they had that we don't have was a unified agenda. I think therein lies the difference. And also financial education. Most of us start our generation with a clean slate, whereas our counterparts tend to have something handed to them. We're now in a position where we can actually change that, so that they can do what they want rather than what they feel they have to do.
But you know what? And one thing I always say, and Jonesy, you know what I'm like, is that I always believe there's no excuses. So even though I'm highlighting the problems, I'm not saying there's no excuse, but I think the difference is if I was Asian and I went back, so if I was from India and I went back to India, I was Chinese and I went back to China, I'll see poor people, but I'll also see very rich people who own stuff. When I go to Africa, when I go to the Caribbean, it's not often you do see that. And what I'm trying to say to you, I'm not saying they don't exist, but you will have a lot of people who have wealth in Africa and who have wealth in the Caribbean, but that's almost split. Like when I went to Zimbabwe, there was so many people who were from China and England who had so much wealth, and I actually saw more of that than the Zimbabweans. So I'm thinking to myself, when I'm looking at people like me, and I'm like, we're all struggling. So it almost becomes a race. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's one thing having unity and saying that, but at the end of the day, we're all struggling here.
Well, sorry, John.
No, I just wanted to read one text message. This is from Mary. Mary saying, I think regarding the system that are in control, ethnic minority has no influence in education, media, politics, finance, and sports. I consider the classification of the people in prominent positions of influence in the above list clearly shows that the system is still devoid of more ethnic participation. The deserving few are still being deprived. So that's from Mary.
Very, very, very good. I just want to I want to fuse that into education.
Yes.
One of the things I do is I challenge exclusions of black kids predominantly from school education system. Right now, what I've come to realize is that most of the misdemeanors that leads to the exclusion is more of a control mechanism, right? And our kids are just being kids, but misunderstood, or the manner in which they exhibit the exuberance is misunderstood, and that I think needs the parents to interact with their school a lot more.
Richard, just hold on to it. Let me take our caller. Hello.
Hi, Jones.
Hi. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, Jones. It's Godwin.
Hi, Godwin. Let's listen to you.
Hi, Jones. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to have a say. Looking at a black person in the 21st century in England or foreign country, I think we are still living under our shadows in terms of our ability or our dreams, ambitions, what we want to do. Because, as someone said already, the system has been built to include everyone. But are we really inclusive in what is going on in terms of education, sports, media? It's not, because we are not given the same opportunities no matter how hard you try. And I think one of the reasons why we are still under our shadow is that there is no unity between the black people, the black communities. We are not united. You will go for an interview you see a black manager, but you will still not even get a call. It's not like maybe there's a bill of inequality, so they should call you if you don't fit the bill. But we don't try to push ourselves, or we don't try to...
Okay, thank you very much, Godwin. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We will definitely do this again because I know Kev is thinking that went quick, and I know Richard had more to say. But I would say thank you very much to my guest, Richard Boateng, who's a lawyer, Kevin George, who's a human performance consultant, for joining us this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll do it again, same place, same time tomorrow. Until then, stay safe. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Charlie, what they happen? Kill beats and the beats manifest on them rapping.
Sugar, manifest. What's wrong with you? You need to get on the grind, man. Talk to God. It's a danger, man.
Whoa. What's the back for? Charlie down ball. You know they see manifest on well told. In symbol, them clap for encore. Can't stand my vein, it's a downpour. Skin pain, the pain, what you they bought for? What I saw in your eyes and I saw. Bug a chuck papa, make a suck shocker. And yo, that Charlie go knock down. Everything I want, money or women, I get them. If I feel lucky, love to cry, meets me, I could drop this song go back you, but and for me, cry. Forget them, and for me, cry. Forget them, and for me, cry. Go back you, and for me, cry. Charlie, forget them. Draw my sword and sketch them. Call my dear, my best friend. Put the stamp on the envelope, address them. That be small pickings, a chicken to a denchim. When I go slow, now so I no pentem. What's so ball, it's sick for a mantem. Any assem, what was them? With the kill beats and give the streets anthem. Send me try me shot and I'm a train me juts. It be all my oh Charlie comods. Cock on Senny, always in hard the cuts. I shock. Say they get to call the pot black. I've nailed this, but I hammer the last two bars. La la like they join me. Bad man tins, tell them bow to a king. Back up not dark when you give me this vein, me say. Everything I want, money or women, I get them. If I feel lucky, love to cry, makes me I could drop this song go back to you, but and for me, cry. Forget them, and for me, cry. Forget them, and for me, cry. Go back to you, and for me, yeah. I know be normal. Normal is overrated. I don't give a constipated. Solo dolo, I'm complicated. Keep myself company like I'm incorporated. I'm my own dude. Kill beats, leave no clues. That's my logic on Pro Tools. You know they bob, bro cool. I did go Mexico on the boat cruise. Manifested to all the world with dope dudes. Argentina, Chile, and France too. You want skin pain? Yes, your chance to. I can give you fame flow, you France too. Oh, I show crying, I'm in the mall. Job blessings flow, enemies ball. Hold on, I did get called. Hello, be future, we are bright, what's it, movie? Everything I want, money or women, I get them. If I feel lucky, love to cry, makes me I could drop this song go back to you, but and for me, cry. Forget them, and for me, cry. Forget them, and for me, cry. Go back to you, and for me, cry. Nonsense. Nonsense.
What does it feel like being black in Britain?
The government has come with its academies, free stuff. Our children are being thrown out of school, exclusion from schools, and they are now, there's a school prison pipeline because they're expelled from school, they're on the streets, they're picked up by the police, get into the criminal justice system, and that's where they stay. So the situation now is absolutely grave for our young people. And of course now we're talking about Brexit.
If I lived somewhere else in Britain, it would be much harder to be ethnic minority and I think being fully accepted into whichever area you live in. So it's difficult. It's got its plus sides because we're progressing, but then again, it's still stuck in its old ways. So the plus is obviously we bring a lot of vibrance, something new to the country. I guess the negative, being an ethnic minority living here, is it's still a white country, it's still British, and I think about 90% of it. And I guess most people tend to think of their own before they give opportunities to others. Obviously, with the media at the moment being very anti-immigrant and all that rhetoric from politicians, and with Brexit, it's a very difficult time, I think.
Well, I just think it's rough. Nothing ain't really happening for none of us. It's just the same old. It's just to me, it's just like a smoke screen. Boy, like Brixton now, that's pushing out the black people out of Brixton. It was pure yuppie and that coming in and pricing us out. Everything's getting expensive. So to me, nothing has changed for me. If you understand what I'm saying, nothing has really changed. Even though you talk about this Brexit and this and that, it ain't gonna benefit. It ain't benefiting us black people. No matter what they do, it's not to benefit us. It's not to benefit us. It's to benefit them and their pockets and stuff there. Yeah.
With more awareness about different ethnic background and with the culture of people coming from all over the world, I would say it's definitely better. Obviously, there are still gaps and rooms for improvement, but yeah, as a kind of someone from ethnic background, it's okay. I think it's getting better in certain areas.
So we are now arrived at Brexit, where the government doesn't really know what it wants to do about Brexit, but that's an opportunity for black people because guess what? The government has to pivot away from the EU towards the Commonwealth. And guess what? The Commonwealth is black and brown people, 2.2 billion of them. And that gives back an opportunity now to engage in the discussion about Brexit. Because then if you're Nigeria or Ghana or the Caribbean, you can say, okay, stop. We need to think about businesses now. How can we now get into business in a big way, and be ahead of it? So we got to be part of the discussion, I think, about Brexit. And that's where we are right now. It's about economic empowerment for the black community.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
I usually just use social media to keep up on news and updates, so to find out what's going on in the world as well, and then to keep track of what's happening in my friends' lives as well.
From my personal experience, it has had many advantages to my life, and connecting with other people, and then getting to know what's around.
Yeah, it's a really easy way to keep up with people. Basically, everyone I know just kind of is on it, and it's very quick, very simple. Like, if I want, it's harder to call people nowadays, literally. Like, no one picks up their phone. It's literally easy to kind of WhatsApp them just if you want something really quickly. So that's basically why I'm on it. It's really good to connect with like old friends as well, like Facebook. Like pretty much everyone is on that now. And if you want to find someone that you haven't spoken to in a while, then it's really easy.
Am I on social media? Yes. Bits of it. Facebook, Snapchat, WhatsApp are the main things I use. Twitter, don't know.
I'm definitely on social media a lot more than I am watching TV or other shows. So I'm kind of still in the loop there. I think it's important to spread the awareness of what's going on in Libya. So it's really shocking that this has been going on for a while now, and like none of us have been able to know about it until recently. Like, if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have known about it at all, and it wouldn't have spread as much as it has now to a lot of people in the world right now. So social media is important to like opening our eyes to what's happening and getting us to voice our opinions and to actually spread petitions around as well.
So the slavery issue. So a lot of my cousins are really like big into political issues, and they were putting it up on Instagram, and then I watched their stories and I was reading about it through there. From what I've read on Instagram and on Snapchat, all the petitions being put, like what's going on currently is like it's disgusting. The fact that this is still happening in our day-to-day, but like mostly I've heard about it through social media, to be honest. And I haven't really heard much in the actual news, like BBC or CNN or anything like that. Haven't really heard much, but social media has been really prevalent.
Then again, social media is another reflection of your. It's not really a parallel world. It's just a reflection of your own personality, in the sense that if you're prone to be bullied, and if you have a kind of a more fragile personality, then you more likely will get bullied online. Young teenagers might be more prone to that, particularly if they don't have good support at home, or if they mix with the wrong crowd.
The really bad thing about social media is how much it can really take you away from you living in the present world. There are times where I can be so sucked into my phone and I'm so unaware of my surroundings, and then like that's a really negative side of social media. Like it really prevents you from like living in the now, especially when you're on holiday and you're Snapchatting everything and you're Instagramming everything and making sure everyone knows what you're up to, but you're not really living it.
Can be a bit intrusive, I would have thought. Also, I think kids probably use too much of it. They need to step out a bit more, perhaps. But yeah, how's that?
So do you think kids need to get out a bit more and stay off social media?
No, you've just got to balance it. Balance it. You know, they've got lots of friends. They talk to their friends all the time when they're at home. But they do need to sort of put it down, go out, don't help, don't hurt, yeah. Well, as a parent, I suppose, really, they can use it away from you. And they're very good at hiding. Where, like, older parents, as I am, you know, probably don't understand half the stuff they're using. Therefore, you don't see the bullying. It's not tangible. So you end up, yeah, it can slip under your net, put it that way.
And as a parent, what advice would you give to other parents to make sure their children are not using social media in the wrong way?
You just got to try and be honest. And hopefully they'll be honest with you, you be honest with them. Obviously, they're going to use it. You just got to try and keep an eye on it, I suppose, best you can.
I'm tired of chasing the current. I'm tired of chasing the current. I'm tired of chasing the current.
Tonight I've come to the red carpet for the international movie premiere of Thy Will Be Done at the iconic BFI Cinema in London. Join me, Jacqueline Baker, on the live as we bring you all the highlights from this international premiere.
Never let my hands on that to fade away to ashes. I'd have never guessed that stubbornness would become my greatest asset. Spitting acid in a world of plastic. I was only flesh and bone of madness. Dust off my jacket. I need to wake up from this. I'm tired of chasing the current. Flying around for discussions and circles above them. It's all
Polly Long, CEO of the BEFTA Awards and presenter. Hello, Polly.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. First of all, I have to ask you, where did you get your outfit? You look gorgeous tonight.
Yeah, it came all the way from Malawi.
From Malawi, wow.
To Malawi via Kenya, Nairobi, and of course to Heathrow and to me. So I'm wearing hard work, a designer from Malawi. And you know, Malawi has been rated the poorest country in the world. I'm happy to be, you know, somebody contributing to their economy.
Oh, you're representing for Malawi. And of course, the best will only do for a premiere.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and you know, the premiere of That Will Be Done had to be represented nicely.
What's your view on the Nollywood film industry and how it's changing?
Do you know what I have to say first? You know, Obi, he doesn't do things small. He does it big now. Hey, and you know, kudos to him. He always sets the pace. He's made history, not just for the African film industry, but for any commercial film, because no film has been premiered here, no commercial film has been premiered here. He's made history, so I'm proud.
And how do you see it sort of progressing in the future? And do you feel like Nollywood is finally on the film map?
Nollywood is here to stay, and it's because of people like Obi. It will stay, and the support that we give him, it's staying. It's not going anywhere.
Hi ladies, you look gorgeous tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
So first of all, give me your names and tell me why you're here tonight.
My name is Blessing. I'm here to support my friend, Mr. Obi Emeloye.
Oh, fantastic. You know the director?
He's my friend. He's my big brother as well.
Oh, wow. He's your brother. So you've come to support Big Brother?
Yeah.
And
he deserves it.
And what are you expecting to see from the film tonight?
I'm expecting to see his brilliant work. I came all the way from Manchester. That's to show I know that he's going to deliver good stuff, so that's why I'm here.
Wow, so you come all the way from Manchester, and he's done really well, hasn't he?
So I think he's going to be the best.
He's definitely a very talented guy.
You can say that again.
I'm expecting to see a lot, as we've been seeing before. We just want to see more of him because he's been a great director, and everyone knows about that. So we just want to see more and see the extent which Nollywood can go.
So it's all about Obi tonight?
It's all about Obi.
It's all about Obi.
So I just want to talk to you really a little bit about why you're here tonight. Why do you think it's important to cover this event?
Well, first of all, you know, this is Nollywood coming to the biggest screen in the whole country. You know, that's a big deal. I've been to a few of these events, you know, Nollywood events, premieres here in the UK, but this is actually the biggest. So it is important to let people know that, yes, Nollywood is growing up to meet Hollywood.
Nollywood has kind of taken over London tonight, really, isn't it?
Well, it has, and you know, it's not only London. I mean, okay, for this night, yes, London, but all over the world. You know, I've been listening to documentaries from Jamaica, from the States. You know, how much they really love Nollywood, and we know, I mean, it's the second largest industry in the world. So yeah.
And what are you expecting to see from the movie?
Well, I mean, I hope we'll see something new, something different. A lot of the criticism about Nollywood is that the storylines are the same, the quality of the filming is not the best, editing could be better, you know. So I'm just hoping that we'll see something different. I mean, if they've gone through all this trouble to get it into the IMAX theater, then hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a good movie on our hands.
And what do you think about the way he puts his films together and the future for him?
He's eloquent about his craft. He loves his craft, obviously. He believes in doing it well, in the right way, taking your time. You know, I think Nollywood really needs to move away from those days where you shoot 2 movies in a week. And I think he's moving in that direction, which is a good thing.
It's definitely the right direction. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
My pleasure.
I'm very excited to have bumped into DJ Abbas. Hi there.
Hello, Jackie. How you doing?
I'm doing really well.
Good.
So tell me, why are you here tonight for the premiere of Thy Will Be Done?
We're here for the premiere of Obi's 4th directorial film, That Will Be Done, starring, of course, Mercy Johnson, her first time on the UK red carpet.
That's very exciting.
Extremely exciting, and you can see all the fans are here excited, asking questions, and alongside Ramsey Noah, another Nollywood legend, so I'm excited.
And he's a bit of a heartthrob, I think?
Well, maybe for you. For me, a bit of a brother. Yes, he is, of course he is, yes.
So what are you expecting to see from the film this evening?
Already, you can see there's this great indication of what the night's going to look like. It's a full house already. Everybody excited to see the very best of Nollywood, you know, and it's a celebration of African cinema in the UK. The UK I've always, especially London, I describe as the 37th state of Nigeria and the gateway of Africa into the world.
Of course, so, Nollywood's taken over London. Europe's next.
And we've been doing so many premieres over the years and done releases, and this is just another step in the right direction.
And what do you think is the future of Nollywood film? Where do you see it going from here?
The future is bright. The future is orange.
You have to use your own light.
Oh, yes. It's bright. Very, very bright. I'm excited. 10 years ago, we were doing premieres with only 10, 20 people in screen. Now we're selling our premieres and we're having actual releases in the UK. So it's on the up. And Nollywood is no longer just a Nigerian brand. It's a global brand. And it's the second largest industry in the world for film industry for volume. And that is already translating into income. In Nigeria, it's one of the major earners in Nigeria for income, in terms of income, and the federal government is looking that way and investing money. So we can only get better.
And I want to hear just a little bit about you before you disappear. What are you working on? What's your next project?
I'm working on that will be done right now. In the summer, we're looking to do a few outdoor events, concerts, leading up to the Nigerian corner, the North Hill Carnival. We're partnering with Top Model of Color, which is celebrating the very best of African beauty on the catwalk in the UK. So we're quite busy. For more information, check out www.djamedia.com and you get to know all we're up to.
Lots coming up. Thanks so much for talking to me.
Always a pleasure, Jackie. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So I've seen some of Obi's other films and come out to see the latest work.
Fantastic. And why do you think Obi is such a sort of critically acclaimed director? What do you think he has that's a bit special?
Well, I think that his eyes are set on the big screen, and he wants to achieve, a quality of storytelling and visual production in his work. And I think he wants to take his films all over the world. So, we're looking forward to see his latest film.
And what are you expecting from it?
I'm not sure. He says it's quite traditional. We'll wait and see. Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
It's okay. That's okay. Lovely to talk.
Lovely to talk to you. I'm here with the editor of Thy Will Be Done. Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Really well. So that must have been a bit of a tough job.
Well, Emilonia called me up. He said, I got some rushes. Can you structure it into something? And I was like, okay. It's always fun working on an Obi production. And this one's good. I think the story's quite interesting. A pastor with two wives is quite, and when we got into it, the performances were great and it's quite a high production value. So it's quite exciting to work on it.
And what do you like about working with Obi? What is he like as a director?
Well, Obi's a good director. I think he picks interesting stories, and he's trying to push the production value up from your typical Nollywood production. So he's obviously got an eye onto a sort of more international type of film. So he's always trying to push the envelope to try and get a better quality production.
That's definitely a good sign in a director, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And what do you think people will like most about the film?
Say that again?
What do you think people will like most about the film? Give us the inside scoop. Are there any surprises?
I think this film, the story, is what's good. I think it's a good script. I think it's, it's topical. It can get people talking. What would you do if you were in this kind of situation? So for that reason, I think there's a lot of good talking points, and hopefully that will, audiences will react to that.
So I came here to see the film, That Will Be Done. Produced and directed by my very good friend Obi. I've worked with Obi before, so I kind of know the kind of quality and the kind of timber and caliber of work he produces.
I've just bumped into Edith Uber, former face of Africa Fashion Week. Hi there, Edith.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really good. So tell me, what are you doing here tonight?
Literally, I'm here because I've heard about the movie premiere for Thy Will Be Done. I've come with my best friend, who's actually Austria's Next Top Model. She's currently doing an interview now, so we just wanted to literally, find out how the movie's going to go. And she's like a budding actress, so
wow, women of many talent. What are you expecting to see from the movie tonight? Are you a fan of Nollywood?
I've been watching Nollywood since I could walk, so I'm definitely much of a fan. I'm expecting to see something different. Something with a little twist, something in depth as well, and something very modern. I'm definitely looking for that, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for speaking to me, Edith.
Oh, thank you so much.
Have a lovely night. Enjoy the movie. Have you travelled all the way from Austria to be here?
No, I've been here for a couple of weeks now, actually. I'm partly based in London and Austria, and some in Nigeria as well, so I'm like all over.
You look absolutely beautiful. Please tell me, how was this created? Who are you wearing?
Oh God, This is Zara. My skirt is from Zara. My shoes as well from Zara. My top, I can remember, it was a gift from my sister. The belt from an...
So you've put this all together yourself?
Everything, yes, I put it together, sorry.
She knows fashion. She knows fashion, guys. Tell me, what are you expecting to see from the movie tonight?
I'm expecting to see a challenging movie today because I did read the synopsis, but I tried to stop in between because I thought, oh, this is getting too exciting. I want to stay surprised. I want to see the movie and have some aha moments. And we can tell Obi Emelonye, he's done it again, and I just can't wait to see what he's done with this movie now because I'm sure he spent a lot of time on this, so I can't wait.
What is it like to be the first black model to win